and you can take this to the bank, is that pursuant to the laws of this state, pursuant to the law in California, Nick Reiner is not guilty of murder. Print that. Print.
But now Nick Reiner is claiming that someone is out to get him. That is the latest headline. So let's talk about this. TMZ is reporting that someone close to the 32-year-old says that Reiner knows he killed his parents, Rob and Michele, but doesn't understand why he's in jail. According to TMZ, Reiner believes the people who put him behind bars are engaged in a, quote, conspiracy against him. Reports surfacing before the new year that Reiner had his medication changed or adjusted before the deaths of his mom and dad. But it remains unclear when that medication was, in fact, changed. So let's talk about this reported conspiracy theory, how it could impact the case. Many of us trial watchers invested in this case think we're going to see a case of not guilty by reason of insanity. If you listen to the way Alan Jackson phrased that, he said he's not guilty of murder, purposefully choosing his words. Many believe, in order to put forward this particular defense. But will it fly? You have to have expert testimony to say that you didn't know right from wrong at the time that the murders occurred. So let's discuss that. Let's bring in forensic psychiatrist Dr. Carole Lieberman and criminal defense attorney Mario Galluci. Dr. Carole, starting with the mental state of this young man, we know he's had lots of trouble with substance abuse. But we've heard very little when we hear about him rehabbing. It was always rehab treatments, for the substance abuse issues. We haven't heard anything about mental health struggles or him being, hospitalized because of a lack of sanity. So what do you make of this coming up now?
Well, this case exposes the weaknesses of the mental health system. I mean, that is one of the problems. Yes, he was put in rehabs 17 or 18 times. And clearly they were focused on his drug abuse, not really his underlying problems. And whether that's the underlying psychological problems, his emotions and so on, his childhood, his traumas and all of that, or whether it's his diagnosis. Now, the diagnosis seems to be schizoaffective disorder. And that was the first paper that I wrote when I was a chief resident at Bellevue. My first paper in a peer-reviewed journal was Schizoaffective Disorder Defies the Dichotomy and Keeps DSM-3 Pondering, meaning that schizoaffective disorder is you have the symptoms of schizophrenia, which include delusions and hallucinations, and affective, that means you have a mood disorder. So it's like bipolar. So it's a kind of combination of the two. And you can't actually be diagnosed with schizophrenia and bipolar, but if you have these symptoms that combine the two, it's schizoaffective disorder. And clearly this was missed during his rehabs and any other treatment he had. And there were so many places along the way that this could have been stopped. And I blame it on the mental health system.
Oh, that's an interesting take. Okay. Mario, so tell me, working with that as a defense attorney with schizoaffective disorder, has been reported as his diagnosis. Is this something that you see as a viable defense, Mario, as a criminal defense attorney for Nick Reiner?
Absolutely. The first thing I would do is hire Dr. Nancy Lieberman to evaluate him as an expert.
Let's take a look at what's at stake for Nick Reiner. So in California, if you're convicted of doing a murder, you can be sentenced to life without parole. If you're found not guilty by reason of insanity for the crime of murder, then you're committed to a state mental hospital for an indefinite period of time, potentially can be the rest of one's life. All depends on the progress that they make with treatment. So it's not that they walk free. It's just that they're committed to a state-run hospital to get the treatment they need. Dr. Carole, back to schizoaffective disorder. Are these people who are afflicted with this generally violent people?
Not necessarily, no. Of course, if you hear voices, which is part of the schizo part, delusions and hallucinations, you could be hearing some voice telling you to kill somebody. But on the whole, no. And, this is just a real, supposedly, yes, he had told a doctor, a psychiatrist, that sometimes there are side effects. And you need to be very careful about how you manage the medications. You need to find the ones that works for a particular patient. And so supposedly he was saying that he was gaining weight, and he didn't like a particular antipsychotic that he was on. But so what the psychiatrist did, to the extent that I'm aware of this, what the psychiatrist did was switch his medications. And you don't just get off one medication one day and then start another medication the other day. You have to taper off, and you have to gradually get on. And ideally, you put the person in the hospital, because if someone has a severe mental illness like schizoaffective disorder and a history of drug abuse, you don't do this out in the wild, give them another prescription and just send them on their way. Because this is a very dangerous time, a very unbalanced time, and that was another example. And this is of what's wrong with the mental health system. Psychiatrists have become pill pushers, and this is what they do. And I'm a psychiatrist, and I am appalled at my profession.
Yeah, well, appreciate you, the hot take, Dr. Carole, I really do. Dr. Carole, appreciate all the insights you shared. We'll leave it here for now. We'll, of course, report any more updates we get on this big case that we know has rocked Hollywood and people all over the world that loved Rob Reiner's work.